You're going to have to learn how to fight.
I am a soldier, and I've been a soldier since I was 12 years old. Why did I become a soldier, you ask? Because I was used to fighting. You see, my father would beat me almost every day. And I figured if I'm going to take a beating, I might as well get paid for it.
I hate Passover. I hate Passover. Those smelly, stinking Jews come into our town in the droves. And it's not just the sweat, it's the blood. The blood of animal sacrifices fill the air. And there's always the smell of insurrection. And as they're coming down the hill, I begin to see them. They begin to follow this man who's writing something. I'm not quite sure what it is. And they're taking their palm branches and laying down before him like we do for Caesar. Oh my goodness, he's riding an ass. He's on a little donkey. And he doesn't even have a sword, a spear, any weapons at all. Not quite a way to lead an insurrection. And as I was looking down, I began to see that scrawny man again. He started to flip over the money tables. And he started to scatter the sacrifices. I'm starting to like this guy. I asked one of my spies who goes down to the temple courts, what was this man's name? What is this strong guy that everybody's following? And he called him Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said it would be his blood that would be spilled and his body that would be broken. What does that mean? And even more confusing, if this rabbi is their teacher and Lord and is greater than them, why did he on earth take off their shoes? Why did he on earth take off his robe and wash their stinking, smelly feet? And the little spy said that they had gone to this place called the Garden of Gethsemane, this place in the Mount of Olives where they went to pray. But their leader knelt down before a rock and, get this, he stood there like a baby crying while his men were around him. What kind of leader does that? My spy told me that little Judas, that little weasel snuck out. He came back up to that very same garden, and while Jesus was there, he came and he placed a kiss on his cheek. And as soon as he did that, the rest of the Sanhedrin guards, the temple guards, came out with their swords, and one of them was taken by one of his men. They took the sword from him because he wasn't a Roman guard. He didn't know how to hold a sword. Apparently, he even got his ear cut off. Serves him right.
My office.
But then Jesus took and healed him. We placed Jesus on the cross. And I did what I always did. I made sure he was secure with his ropes. And then I placed the nails. Made sure his feet were secure. Said, would you forgive me and allow me to go into your kingdom? What is it with the kingdom thing? What kingdom could he possibly have? Didn't he realize that the only place he had was the cross? This Jesus of Nazareth had no kingdom. And yet Jesus granted it anyway. He said that with me you will be in paradise. He began to fade as the storm came in. I probably should have went for shelter as the raindrops began to hit, but I thought I wanted to see this to the end. It began to get dark outside, and the sun somehow became veiled. And as the rain came down, I put up my cloak and stood next to the cross. As I looked up, I began to see the thunder and the lightning, and as I looked into his face, he looked down at mine. He said something I didn't expect. He said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Forgive them. No criminal has ever forgiven me. I've never even forgiven my own father for how he treated me. And yet this man who I nailed to the cross forgave me for my sin. Forgave me for crucifying him. He said, "It is finished. And into your hands I commit my spirit." And as he said those last words, I looked up at him. I didn't see hate in his eyes. I saw love. Enough love to save the whole world. I knew in my head that Caesar was Lord, Caesar was God, but in my mouth I cried out, surely this man was the Son of God.
Pilate, that man's a genius. Pilate decided that since there was rumors that this Jesus of Nazareth might rise from the dead, he wanted to squelch any rumors. So he assigned a squadron of men, not the Sanhedrin, not the Jewish guards, but Roman men with swords to guard the tomb. And guard the tomb they did. And as they guarded that tomb, I stopped by on Saturday to make sure everything was in order, and it was. They were marching on, they were making sure that the tomb was still sealed with the Roman seal, and that no one would tamper with it. But then, after 3 days, I was awoken from my sleep. That little spy that I'd hired earlier came and he said, "Something has gone wrong." So I ran out to the tomb, and there I saw my men asleep, laying on the ground. I said, "What's happened here?" They didn't know. It was like an earthquake, and a bright light had happened, and when they woke up, they saw that the stone had rolled away. I said, "Rolled away? It takes 3 or 4 good, solid Roman men to roll that stone. How could it just mysteriously open up? How could Pilate's seal be broken?" I told them to go back to the barracks. I'd deal with them later. But I had to ask myself, what will Pilate do? I know the true penalty is corporal punishment. My neck will be around a noose, and so will all my men. I have to think about this. So I went and I talked to the priests. They said that we should say there was a story. Yeah, make up a story, they told me, that the disciples overwhelmed us and stole the body. Of course, I can't do that. Those scrawny men overwhelmed my Roman guards. That would still be the death penalty. But then they sweetened the deal. 1 bag of money, and then another, and then another. And I started to look at my retirement account right there. I said, well, maybe we could lie just a little bit. So we sold the story to Pilate. We sold it to others. But in my heart, I knew that wasn't the truth. I went back out to that garden because I had to see for myself. And I went back into the tomb. I looked, and there were the grave clothes, still laying on the concrete slab. On the stone slab was laying the same clothes that Jesus was wrapped in. And as I walked out, I thought to myself, as if he had just evaporated all those clothes. How could he do that? And as I walked through the garden, suddenly I saw one of the gardeners there. A man walks up to me. He says, "For whom do you seek?" I said, "There was a man that died 3 days ago. We buried him in the tomb, and now his body is gone. Have you seen who's taken him?" He said, "No one has taken him." And then I saw that he was as bright as the sun, that I was speaking to an angel. And the angel said that he had risen from the dead. Risen from the dead? How could that be? If this man rises from the dead, Rome will have no authority. Rome will have no power. The only threat we have is that of death. And if people realize that they can be risen from the dead, there'll be insurrection everywhere. But then I remembered that same man that I saw on that cross. That same man, when he looked me in the eye and he said that my sins were forgiven. I realized he truly was the Son of God. And if he was truly the Son of God, then indeed he could be risen. The Christ was risen. Of course, that's the answer. Christ was risen. The resurrecting Christ is now resurrecting me. Christ was risen indeed.